Hello everybody, it's Connor here and we are back with one Leeds video. We are back with another bit of content. Now listen, I'm here to give you a little bit of an apology. I have been sporadically away I've had like 2 phases away from the channel, so apologies for that. There is going to be much more consistent stuff on the channel, of course, and we're back here with another video. You guys haven't heard my reaction to the Brentford game. You haven't heard really my full thoughts on the Everton game and what I think's going on at the minute. So I've just written a few things down on exactly where Leeds United are, the league table, individual ratings, and so forth. You know, we're just going to discuss everything. You know, when we've had, 5-6 games at this moment in time, and we're just going to discuss everything that's gone on in these games, discussing if it's an indication of where Leeds are going to finish and if we're going to progress or if we're going to regress, you know, on what we're doing at this moment in time. So, okay, so what did we notice and what have we noticed? Obviously, Leeds have picked up 1 point in 9, which for me is highly disappointing. You know, why is it disappointing? Well, because of the first few games, you know, obviously taking the result off Chelsea, it seems to have gone a little bit downhill since that point, really. We've not been as effective in the press. We've not been as good, in my opinion, at cutting off the passing lines. There's been a serious gap between the 2 defensive midfielders in the defence, which is naturally going to happen in the system. And I just think Leeds have struggled a little bit. I don't think we've been as good on set pieces. So there's a lot to unpick there, a hell of a lot to unpick. I think what we saw at the weekend was a change that was needed. I think an obvious change at the back, and I think that's going to have to be Diego Llorente. I've called for it now for the best part of a year. He's not good enough. He will never be good enough. There is a reason that Real Sociedad have let him go, and for those 4 seasons they haven't replaced him. And last season they had one of the best defensive records in Europe. You know, Diego Llorente is not going to be a miss if Leeds United leave him out of the side. Now, this is quite a ruthless analysis of Diego Llorente, but that is one of the worst performances I've ever seen. It is up there with Paul Rachubka against Blackpool at Ellen Road when we lost 5-0. It's that bad. That level of dereliction of duty, if you will, you know, professionalism, just doing what's needed for your side. And I just thought he was absolutely abysmal. It was an abhorrent performance. And I think, listen, he's got to improve. Obviously, we support him. But sometimes there's got to be a little bit of a personal reflection. There's got to be a look at these consistent trends and patterns which seem to reoccur with Diego Llorente. I think the big thing for me with him is his ability to deal with any sort of striker. I see a small, diminutive striker able to really stretch the Leeds defence. And if Diego Llorente is tasked with following this diminutive defender, I think it's very easy to get past him. It's very easy to be able to show him the feint. It's very easy to put the ball between his legs because he's constantly got his legs about 4 yards apart. It's very easy to beat him with pace. It's very easy for any style of attacker to beat him. Now, he's had an absolute nightmare up against Danny Welbeck, who initially started on Robin Koch. He was, you know, Robin Koch was very much up against him in that Brighton game, and then he veered over to Diego Llorente because as an attacker, what you do is veer onto the weaker defender. That's exactly what he did. He bullied Diego Llorente, as did Ivan Toney. And I just don't understand what profile of striker we look at when we look at Diego Llorente and think he's going to be able to dominate that opposing striker. There is none. There is no profile of attacker which I feel confident with Diego Llorente up against. And that is a serious, serious problem in the best league in the world. Now, I've just mentioned being caught out of possession. I mentioned all the things that are a problem with him out of possession. It's his spatial awareness as well. His positioning is all off. You know, you even just look at the Everton goal, for instance, when initially he's following Dwight McNeil. Dwight McNeil pulls him out because it's extremely easy to do that. He then leaves Dwight McNeil, runs all the way back into his defensive position, and the ball is played through his legs, can't sort his feet out. It's almost Benny Hill music style defending. The ball goes through his legs. Anthony Gordon slots it home. It's comical. And that continued into the Brentford game where, for me, 3 of the goals should be ruled out and 2 of them were his fault. VAR will come on to that in a little bit, which is an absolute disgrace. It needs to be thrown in the bin, especially after the weekend, with I think they recorded 10 instances of debatable and controversial decisions by VAR. 10, which is staggering, absolutely staggering. Now, human error doesn't give 10 debatable/controversial decisions in the best league in the world. This VAR, which everybody was calling for, is a sham. And we're going to get onto that in just a little bit. But back onto Diego Llorente, I think someone mentioned it in my comment section as well, who watches a lot of Spanish football. when he's on the ball, there is almost, when you're playing in La Liga and any league in Spain, you're able to delay, then pass the ball because it's not as quick. The division isn't as quick. Whereas in the Premier League, he hasn't adapted. There's been no game that I've looked at with Diego Llorente and thought to myself, he's got better and better. He's progressed. For me, he's regressed completely. He's really, really declined, which is what the Sociedad fans said would happen with Diego Llorente. When he's on the ball, there is a delay consistently. 1, 2, 3, 4 touches, then he'll pass, of which within the third touch on the ball, the defender is on him. That consistently happens. And we saw that for the Brentford goal, obviously the last goal, where he's dilly-dallying on the ball, tries to Cruyff turn, tries to be intelligent. A simple press by Ivan Toney. It wasn't a collective press, which I thought Brentford were very good at on the day, but it wasn't a collective press. It was a simple press from a striker, fumbled. And, you cannot give Ivan Toney, or it might have been Brian and Buemo, I can't quite remember, there's so many goals, but you can't give those two any space and time on the ball, and Diego Llorente just doesn't seem to learn. The ball is always stuck on his, in between his feet. So, yeah, he's got to come out. And I think what I would do in terms of a defensive structure is look to partner Liam Cooper, because in my opinion, I don't want that to be the long-term thing. I would like to see a Robin Kopp, Pascal Struijk back too, but the rant that I had on deadline day, which a lot of you guys have seen, the reason I had that rant is because, once again, we didn't bring a left back. We didn't bring any balance to that back line. We didn't enable our best defender to be the defender. What we're doing is now we're stretching the defensive line, which means that our best defender has to play left back, which for me is pure negligence and is going to hurt Leeds throughout the season. So you will have to bring Liam Cooper in. My issue, as I consistently keep saying with Liam Cooper, is it's not the way forward, and there's got to be an evolution at some point. And the reason I consistently mention evolution is because there needs to be synergy. Use that word all the time. There needs to be a cohesion. There needs to be a partnerships, plural, built at the back. That builds success. So when you are consistently chopping and changing at the back, that is the worst position to be doing it in outside the goalkeeper. You cannot be chopping and changing consistently with your back line. Now, if Liam Cooper is to come back in, obviously a lot of people think it will give us that defensive reassurance. I'm not of that mindset. I think there is still high levels of mistakes in Liam Cooper. I think last season, a lot of the games maybe that he came up against weren't against the top 6 sides. We saw that. There was stats going in and around the Leeds United Twitter sphere and online sphere about how Cooper hadn't played the top 6 and top 8 really consistently, whereas you got the other defenders were coming up against that top 6, top 8, which was declining a lot of their statistics, which naturally made Cooper's statistics look a little bit better when he's coming in. A lot of people talking about on-the-field leadership, a proper born-bred leader, someone who's, really demanding from the back. I never saw that personally, and this isn't an agenda. I don't have an agenda against any Leeds United footballer. What I do is I shoot from the hip. I say it as I see it. And, I've been to Ellen Road plenty of times, watched Liam Cooper. I wouldn't describe him as a vocal defender. I just think players who are out of the picture seem to gain a lot of attributes when other people in the picture aren't doing the things that we want them to. And that's the nature of football, isn't it? That's what we saw last season and the season before when some players were declining, maybe under Marcelo Bielsa. So, listen, but if Cooper is to come back in, I would prefer Cooper to be in there at this moment in time to Diego Llorente. Even though I do think Coops does make mistakes, I think he's a little bit more dependable than Diego Llorente. Now, the issue when we're talking about dependability, the issue when we're talking about reliability is Liam's going to be out probably another 2 or 3 times this season, which means on another slant, when we're looking at reliability, it's a big problem because then the defence is going to be moving around again. Those partnerships have to be reformed. The synergy has to be put, together again. That's the issue with putting Liam Cooper in. He will be out of this side at some point again this season. Whereas at least probably with Diego Llorente, you're going to fashion maybe a little bit more of a relationship. However, with his performances at the minute, he simply has to be dropped. He's not good enough. So that's maybe one way that you sort the defence out. When we're looking at right back, I know a few people have mentioned this on Twitter, and I would maybe agree with them. I don't know if Rasmus would have been injured at the weekend. I think it was a smart decision from the club to leave him out of the firing line. Listen, that's just my thoughts on it. I could be completely wrong. He could have picked up an injury, but he needed taken out of the firing line. I think he's struggled to adapt to the Premier League, which is always going to be a natural thing from the Austrian Bundesliga. Of course it is. It's a very, very, you're looking at probably, in terms of calibre, you're looking at maybe 7 or 8 leagues above that. So it's not going to be, that Salzburg dominating football games when you come to the English Premier League. It's not going to be you flying forward and getting assists and maybe chipping in with goals every now and again in the Premier League. It's a completely different kettle of fish. Now, the problem for me with Rasmus at the minute, when he is playing, is he's being ultra safe. And in a system when you are the man to provide the width in a narrow system, you cannot be ultra safe. You have to get forward. You have to risk. You have to run the risk of losing the ball. And that's the thing. That's why we're always going to concede goals, because the fullbacks are always going to push up. If you're a smart opposition side, like you saw at Brentford at the weekend, they didn't actively move forward consistently. Central midfielder, either Jensen or one of the back two, get the ball, play the ball over into the channels. Tony and Mbeumo would run onto that, and you're always going to get that with the front two as well, because if the fullbacks are pushing on with Leeds United, you're going to get a 2v2 scenario if Leeds are caught out up there and we're not being efficient up there. Ball played over the top, and it's 2-on-2 or 2-on-1, maybe if we've pushed the defender a little bit higher. So it's always going to be difficult for a right back and a left back in the system in the Premier League, because it's such a good division, and there are so many intelligent technical footballers. So when I'm looking at Rasmus, I'm thinking to myself, he needs to open his body up a little bit more. I think a lot of the time when you are ultra safe, what you tend to do is play inside. You tend to play the ball back to your centre-back, because the centre-back has much more space, and naturally you always pass it back to the goalkeeper. If you do that, you're not going to lose the ball, but you're not going to gain Leeds any territory, and you're going to almost allow the opposition to press Leeds high, because they know every single time they're not going to have a problem with Rasmus Christensen, because all he's going to do is go back. So we have no danger of the ball being clipped in behind. We have no danger of him taking on his man, and it's going to be quite easy for teams to press on us. Now, I think that's why where the press is breaking down as well. I think we're not able to curate as much width with Rasmus in there because of that, because he's been ultra safe. And at the minute, that's a problem within the system. So that's why I think he was left out of the weekend. I think Drame came in. He played a lovely fizzing ball across where someone should have been on the end of, but I think overall he was okay. He was all right. Now, the real conversation is when Luke Ayling came on, obviously got an assist. My argument to this is the game is completely different when Luke Ayling comes on. He's bombing down the right-hand side, which I think adaptability with Rasmus, we've seen at Salzburg, there was a huge level of his game, which would be him bombing on and him getting down that right-hand side and him providing assists and him getting goals as well and being in the thick of it. That's what we're hoping. That's what Leeds will be hoping for, because the Jesse Marsh system is all about bombing on forward. That's why I think players like Junior Firpo might actually be better in this system, because it's all about advancing. There's not the onus on defending. But I think it's going to be a huge test for Luke Ayling, because once again, it's a completely different system. We've only really honed the system this year to be playing in a system which is very, very different to Marcelo Bielsa's. There's not the onus on overlaps, which Luke Ayling was absolutely exceptional at for those first couple of years. I think there's a lot of revisionism at the minute with Leeds fans, because they've seen him come on, he's got an assist, they're thinking, he's going to be back to the days of Bielsa. Luke Ayling has been terrible for a while. He's been terrible for a long, long time. This was Marsh. This was at the back end of the Bielsa era as well. So I think there's definitely a conversation to be had there, which I completely understand what people are talking about when it comes to Ayling. I would rather stick with Rasmus, and what I would rather do is build Rasmus up. And if he is able to really start hitting those wings, if he's really able to stick the ball into the box and become dependable and advance his game a little bit in that respect, which I think he will, that's going to be better for Leeds United in the long run. I think Luke Ayling, fine. It worked for 20 minutes when he came on, but as I said, the game state was completely different. Completely different when he came on. And this is my argument with Matthias Klick. This is always going to be my argument with Joe Gelhardt as well. Starting a game in this system is going to be very, very different to coming on in the last 15, 20 minutes. So I would say hold your horses with Luke Ayling a little bit, to be quite honest with you, because as we say, towards the back end of when he was playing in the last season, he was absolutely dreadful. So Patrick Bamford, there's been a lot of people talking about Pat Bamford at the minute. Now, he missed a chance at the weekend. I think the more annoying chance for me that he missed was probably the one where he was almost thrown goal, you could say, on his favourite left foot to just bend it round, as we saw Anthony do for Scum at the weekend against Arsenal. a perfect opportunity to bend the ball around David Raya. David Raya was towards his near post. We know he's a fantastic goalkeeper, but it was a real opportunity for Pat Bamford. Smashed it towards the corner flag. Now, that's what you're going to get with Pat Bamford. That's why I've always called for a striker to be competing with Bamford, because we're not talking about Harry Kane here. We're talking about Patrick Bamford. I called for Shea Adams. I called for Ollie Watkins, because those two players would challenge Patrick Bamford for that starting shirt 100%. Now, the one where the ball was fizzed across and Bamford's there, hits his instep, I'm not as angry with that as I am with the other one, because the other one, he's got a lot of time, and this is the problem with Pat Bamford. The issue I had at the weekend was the fact that you always relied on him instinctively to be quite decent, because when he has time to think about it, that's when Pat is poor, in my opinion. When it's instinct, that's when he's good. But, you know, obviously you had the chance at the weekend where it hit his instep, but and you know, went to a Brentford player or whatever it did. But the good thing is he was in that position. You know, that's the positive thing. And that's the thing with Pat Bamford. His off the ball movement is very, very, very good. And we can't compete with that in terms of any other player in our side. So, yeah, I thought Pat was all right when he came on. Made difference, was holding the ball up. And I think he's a system-based player. He's not going to get you, in my opinion, 17 goals was a bit of an outlier in the Premier League. I don't think he'll ever hit that again for Leeds United. I don't think he'll ever hit that again in his career. However, what he does off the ball is a massive thing for Leeds United. It's a huge, huge aspect of how we're going to be building up in this Jesse Marsch system. It was a huge aspect of how we built up through Marcelo Bielsa. But Pat Bamford, in the Championship season that we got promoted, and in the season in the Premier League when he got 17 goals and 16 goals respectively, still missed 54 big chances. 54. So we're always going to get that. So that's why I was very, very hot on the tail of getting another striker to compete with him. Not to be secondary, but to compete with him. However, I think Bamford being on the pitch is going to be much better for Leeds United than Bamford being off the pitch. Shots conceded from open play. I've seen a graph, and Leeds are actually doing okay when it comes to shots conceded from open play. It's not actually that bad. What I would say is the level of opposition we've faced, take maybe Chelsea out of it, hasn't been of the level where some of the teams in and around us have faced in terms of you know, the calibre of sides. That's what I would say as a caveat. But overall, that's probably a little bit of a positive for Leeds United. Now, something that I wanted to touch on as well is Brendan Aronson. Now, we saw the effectiveness of Brendan, and we've seen the effectiveness of Brendan and what a lovely little player he is. I actually loved him on the right when he played against Chelsea. I thought he was very menacing. He was very direct. I thought he was very quick across a short space. His agility, his ability off that right foot to drop the shoulder and then go down the line was very, very good. I actually was really impressed with him down there, and I think it's fascinating now, because I think in the central space, he's getting closed down a lot. And what you have seen as well is when Matthias Klich has been in that number 10 role, a little bit of guile, a little bit of creativity, a little bit of understanding of the system, not the system as such, but being part of the Leeds United setup and having synergy with other players, i.e. Jack Harrison, is maybe putting him a little bit ahead of Brendan at the minute, just in terms of impact, because I think Brendan has been crowded out by a lot of teams. You look at the teams that we've come up against, you look at Brighton. Naturally, what they do is when Leeds were attacking Brighton, what they would do is Pascal Gross started up front with Danny Welbeck. He would drop into a midfield five. Obviously, you've got three centrally. They're going to crowd out, naturally, Brendan Aronson, that central attacking midfielder, because Leeds play so vertically, because Leeds play centrally. Graham Potter is a very, very intelligent manager. Anytime Leeds were willing to get them on the break, he dropped Danny Welbeck in just as almost a number 10, and he put Pascal Gross in that midfield. So Brendan was completely crowded out, as with the defensive midfielders. That is a problem Leeds are going to face consistently, by the way, if they're coming up against smart managers. And I'm going to get to Nottingham Forest in a minute, and I'm not saying Steve Cooper's not a smart manager, but I think they're set up a little bit differently, and they're not going to veer away from that. So we've discussed that. Everton. What you got with Everton is they played a 4-3-3 system. However, when you're watching that game, it wasn't a 4-3-3 at all. It was a 4-3-3 on the counter-attack. However, naturally, what Everton were doing is dropping into an almost 5-5 formation. You know, it was that deep, it was that defensive. So, you know, you're crowding out Brendan Aronson there again. And what we saw at the weekend, once again, is a different system. So almost a 3-4-3 or a 4-3-3 if you're looking at Brentford, really. But the ball, even with the Brentford midfielders that have had a crick in their necks, the ball is consistently going over the top to Ivan Toney, looking for the flick on for Brian Mbeumo, direct. And it worked consistently. So you're bypassing Brendan Aronson. When Leeds are in possession, they're crowding out the midfield once again. So Aronson's really struggling, in my opinion, to get space in and around that. And I think when you're getting rid of him, you're getting rid of a lot of Leeds United's play. But as I said, the really interesting aspect of this is he's going to get more space when he's on that right-hand side. No, it's narrow, but he's going to get more space. Be interesting to see where and if that changes at some point. You know, whether or not you drop Cini, which sounds mad at the minute, I know, or you drop Jack and move Cini over, and then you bring Click into that number 10 role and push Brendan out wide. You know, a bit of variation. You're able to be pragmatic because we're able to, you know, fluctuate the system a little bit, but we've got different personnel. Which can impact it. Somerville was another one that I wanted to touch on as well. Is he ready? Is he ready right now for Leeds United? He's been given the number 10, which I thought was a mistake at the time. Said it on here. I think the number 10 is a lot of pressure. And is he going to feature that much for Leeds United to be given the number 10? Start many games. That, you know, it was I don't know whether or not he was just giving me a little bit of confidence. Obviously, that was a penalty for me, and he should have been awarded a penalty, and that was some great little bit of ingenuity there, and a lot of speed as well, which was fantastic to see. But for me, he still looks a little bit lost. He still looks a little bit of the under 21s, 23s mould. And I don't know if he's ready to start for Leeds United yet. I'd be fascinated to know what you guys think in the comment section below. Matt Rocker, loads of you guys say that I speak about him too much and, you know, I should be balancing my opinion out with Tyler Adams. I don't know why this becomes a Tyler Adams, Matt Rocker thing, but it is what it is. Some people are just going down that route. Our best players in this side are Matt Rocker and Luis Sinisterra in terms of technical capability. Matt Rocker is the only non-defender in the top 12 progressive passers in the league. And in that list are Pascal Strauchen, Robin Koch too. The only non-defender. This is how good he is at the minute. His efficiency is through the roof. His accuracy is through the roof. He chipped in with a goal at the weekend. He is the intelligent. He's the brain in this side, which is great to see. I think Tyler's been, everyone does this Matt Rocker versus Tyler Adams weird thing, and if you're a Leeds fan, it's even weirder. But inadvertently, I'm gonna talk about that anyway because people seem to be having it as a strange topic of conversation. But I think Tyler was giving the ball away a little bit at the weekend again. I spoke about his passing efficiency. People seem to think I've got an agenda. I love Tyler Adams. I think he's been a really, really top addition. And I think there is an argument that he was the man of the match in the Everton game. There is an argument he was man of the match for Leeds United in the Brighton game as well. But I thought against Brentford, his passing efficiency when he was up against the press was pretty poor. It was either lateral, it was back, or he was getting intercepted. Now in those vertical spaces against teams like Brentford, who are going to press you, teams are going to use that as a blueprint. With Brentford doing that, by the way, if you're able to isolate Tyler Adams and you're able to really, you know, actively press him and he's not able to go forward and he's continuously going laterally or backwards, teams are going to use that as a blueprint again, as with Rasmus Christensen, and they're going to push Leeds high, they're going to press Leeds high, and they're going to win the ball in our half because we know even with the Bielsa system, we're not good, in my opinion, in possession within those sort of like back embers. We're just not. Which naturally would needs to improve, and it'd have been improved if Pascal was back there for me. Okay, so a lot of people were asking me about the Dan James decision. I'm all right with Dan James going. There's been a lot of heat on it. Willo Nonso coming in. I think it was a mind-boggling decision that he's like the fourth choice and we're bringing him in. I said on my video last time that it should have been Gakpo, it should have been Dieng. Obviously, we've seen the Dieng stuff come out afterwards about, you know, how his medical's toilet and all this sort of stuff, but there had to be another addition in there, in my opinion anyway, someone who can slot in and compete. But Willo Nonso is a step up to Dan James. So yeah, listen, it's recruitment is going to be questioned again. Leeds brought him in last window for 27 million. Shocking recruitment, and we're loaning him out and looking to pass him on already. But it is what it is. I think Willo Nonso is an upgrade on Dan James, but will we see him in a Leeds United shirt this season? I don't know. But huge, as in starting for Leeds. Huge weekend coming up for Leeds, and a huge week. You know, we go to our arch rivals, Manchester United, in the following week. Which is going to be a tough game because they're going to try press us high. We're going to have to deal with that. And Leeds are going to have to do much better at Old Trafford than we have done. They've had a decent start at home, a very good start at home, obviously beating Liverpool and beating Arsenal. They're going to be well up for that, so it's not going to be an easy game for Leeds. But prior to that, we've got Nottingham Forest, which Forest play in a 4-3-3 system. When you're looking at Morgan Gibbs-White, Brennan Johnson, and I think they had Jesse Lingard. I think someone like Brennan Harrison is going to find a lot more joy, because I don't think as a front three, those three are going to be as disciplined as the front threes that we've spoken about in terms of, you know, fitting into a midfield block, a defensive low block. I think Forest are going to really try go for it, which means there's going to be more space for players like Brendan Harrison, Jack Harrison, and Louis Sinisterra. They have to win. We have to win. It's 1 point in 9 for Leeds United. It would be a horrific week if it was 1 point in a horrific couple of weeks. If it was 1 point in 15, you know, if it was, you know, even 2 points in 15. And this is why I said at the start, when people are getting giddy, just calm down. We'll see where we are. We'll see where Rodrigo is. You know, I mentioned that consistently. We'll see where Adams and Rocker are after, you know, the first 10 games. And we just need to calm down and see what's what, because nobody's won the league in August. It never works like that. You know, we'd be top 4, top 5 for the past couple of years, wouldn't we? So, listen, it's a huge couple of weeks coming up for Leeds. I wanted 4 points out of Brentford and Everton. So 1 point in 9 is not good enough, especially with the calibre of teams that we came up against. I think Brighton are a good side, but I think we could have got something there. I think Everton, that was a win. It had to be a win. Everton, I think Everton have got 3 points in 10. Something like that. Or now it'll be 4 points in 11, won't it, after the Liverpool game? But it's just not good enough. You have to beat Everton, and we've just got a bad record against Everton at home. It's just not been good enough for how bad they've been over the past two or 3 years. And obviously, the game at the weekend was Brentford's highest ever win in the Premier League, so it's just not acceptable. It's not acceptable. VAR was an absolute shambles, but Leeds were also a shambles. Let's not get away from that. So still positives there, of course, but we have to improve, and we have to improve quickly, because I think there's a lot of Leeds fans getting a little bit disgruntled and thinking that maybe this is the Leeds of the past, because some similarities are there. And I'm a little bit worried about that defensive line being consistently exposed by the pressing units of Leeds going forward, which does include Mark Rocker. It does include Tyler Adams to pick up those second balls. That simple ball over the top. You've got anyone in that space. You've got, 6 Leeds players in those pressing units. If they bypass that space, and the fullbacks are also pressed on high, there are scenarios, and there were scenarios against Everton. Let's not beat around the bush. That Damari Gray goal, the Patterson one where he struck across goal. Leeds were exposed again. The double pivot was high up the pitch, higher up the pitch than it should have been. And Leeds were exposed. We've been exposed, and there's a lot to take from Ilan Meslier, who's been exceptional this season. Leeds are facing a lot of chances from the opposition. That needs to improve. And yeah, we need to sort it out quickly, because we don't want us to get in a little bit of a rut now, because the table is clustering up. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. We've spoken about so much in this video. It's not really been a review. It's not really been a preview. It's just been a bit more of a discussion. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. Have a great day, everybody. We'll be back with another video tomorrow. Make sure you check out the Patreon account. We're going to be doing something on the American sponsorship. The American owners, I should say, sponsorship. The American owners who are... looks like they're going to be taking full control of Leeds United in 2024. So we're going to be doing a video on that. Let me know exactly what you think, guys, and I'll see you in a bit. Cheers.